Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, the podcast where business, culture, and community come together to inspire and empower. I'm your host, Catherine Ripley. Each week, we'll explore meaningful conversations about how today's business landscape is shaped by innovation, relationships, and the people behind the progress. From actionable insights and stories from industry leaders to topics like customer experience, fostering strong business relationships, and the role of automation, we've got you covered. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating growth, a leader focused on building lasting connections, or someone interested in how culture and community drive success, Symplicity Conversations is here to guide you. If you're ready to turn challenges into opportunities and make meaningful strides in your business and community, subscribe now and join the conversation. Get ready to simplify complexity and make an impact with Symplicity Conversations. Welcome to Symplicity Conversations, where we explore the intersection between business, leadership, and community. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Roberta McCarter, the founder of Novus Data Journeys. We're diving into the story behind her leap into entrepreneurship, the mission of Novus, and how data can transform growing businesses from the inside out. But first, let's start with our quote of the day, our Symplicity Insights. This is from Nancy Duarte, and she says, "Data will talk to you if you're willing to listen," which I think is just a perfect quote for us today, Roberta.
Love it. It's just really important. Listen.
Yeah. You can follow us on LinkedIn for updates and behind-the-scene content, subscribe on YouTube for full episodes, and visit thesimplepodcast.com to learn more about our guests and their work. So, Roberta, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Catherine. I am as well. This is exciting.
It is. Thanks for joining. So, you just dove into this entrepreneur journey of starting your company. Give us a little bit of your background. Where were you at before you decided to start your company?
Love it. I should say up front as we talk about this, Catherine, I did not expect to be here, which I think is like the beauty of the journey, right? Hence a little bit about our name.
Yeah.
I've worked in technology for 25 years. I think I'm probably dating myself quite a bit. But the start of that journey was really around technical communication. What and how do you connect with people? Because I'm a people person. I really enjoy understanding what makes people make the decisions they need to do, companies do the insights. And so I really started that journey small. I started in a document management company, and then I started to grow into retail. I worked at a regional HEB company. Then I moved to USAA for many years, financial services, and then back to retail with Amazon, and then finished my career at McKesson, really driving insights and artificial intelligence type of decisioning for data management. The common thread for all of those things on my journey was understanding what the consumers and producers of either technology or data, not just what they want, but what do they need? How do you design things with people in the center of the products and the solutions that you did? And so, as I moved through this journey, it became more and more evident to me that understanding, the high moments that people experience in decisions they need to make, and what are those low moments, was something that really made me excited. And that's how I ended up in data and analytics for the last probably 10 or 15 years. And that is understanding the information that makes impact on a daily basis. So
Wow.
Now, how did I end up with Novus Data Journeys? Because people are always like, it's really strange that you went through all of these Fortune 100 companies.
Yeah.
To me, I wanted to make a change where I could impact the entire life cycle of a user or a consumer's journey. And when you're in corporate, you're often doing one specific thing, or you're looking at one horizontal journey that our people are taking. And so for me, Novus Data Journeys in entrepreneurship was, I can do more. I can add value from the very beginning of the journey with my background all the way through the solution, and then being able to measure the success and the insights that are available to drive business outcomes. So just exciting for me.
That so resonates with me that I wasn't expecting to start a business either, you know, and I'm in my 19th year. I didn't grow up with being told start a business. I did grow up being told go to college, which I was a non-traditional student, but I really can relate to all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur and I didn't expect it. I was handed a resignation letter, handed an agent agreement, welcome to the program. And that's how Symplicity was started on January 5th, 2007. And so then it's like, okay, what is an agent? I had to figure that out. So it's interesting that you were in that same role going, I wasn't expecting to start a business, but you know, now you're there. So what kind of, I guess, tell us about the transition from being an employee to a founder and what kind of emotions or challenges were around that?
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. I love that question because the moment I decided to be an entrepreneur was on a walk with another female friend who actually had started her company. And it wasn't that it was planned. I think every journey in my career had been planned. And so I had made a decision to take a break and just kind of figure out after 25 years, what was I doing? How was I doing it? You know, after COVID and after all of the high pressure environment, I wanted to take stock. And so I was having this walk with a friend of mine. She was talking a little bit about her journey. And I went, I want to be the driver of my own destiny. I want to add value in a very different way, whether it's to nonprofits, which I have a passion point we can talk about as well, but also for, small to mid-sized companies that have needs. And so the emotions for me were first, holy wow, I can do this. And then, oh my heavens, what have I done? Because in corporate, you have a legal department, you have an accounting department, you have all of these things around you that have existed for years, especially in the companies that I worked for. And so for me, it was learning, wow, how do you set payroll up? I mean, I could tell you how to design a technology environment and the set of tools to build an AI solution. But I couldn't tell you how to run accounting. What does the legal contract look like to do an NDA? And so I think from an emotion perspective, I wake up even today, months after I started, worried that I don't know everything because I really want to, but also knowing I'm challenged. Like I can learn every single day to do something new. I'm bringing on some contractors into my company, and I'm like, ooh, how do I do that? How do you forecast the payroll and take the risk associated with that? I think for me, the standing emotion daily is I can do this, I can learn this, and I can add value. And going through those emotions and those fears every day is part of the journey of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yes, it is. 19 years in, right? I can still tell you that I don't know everything. I know a lot more than I did. I wish I knew things in my first year. So I think it's important to give back. And gosh, if I can tell you one thing and have you skip one of my fail forward moments, that's really important to me. To give back, especially women in technology. We need more women in technology. But I think courage is the biggest thing that I needed my first year. I felt like sometimes I couldn't breathe, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I didn't even know what I was doing. But it takes a village. You really rely on other people. But I feel like sometimes you learn more from the mistakes you make along the way. Right? Instead of all the successes. Yeah. So I would say recently I was at a CEO roundtable retreat. And one of the things that came up during the retreat is this concept of this equation where it's productivity equals performance minus interferences. And it's like, wow, that really resonated. And as we were having that discussion, we were talking about things like forgiveness. And I didn't realize that I had so many things along my journey that I needed to forgive myself for, mistakes that I've made, people that I've hired and spent way too much money on and did not get a return on. Those are the risks we take, right? You know, but there's also some beautiful fingerprints that we have on our business. And I would say try to, at the end, I do a State of the Union at the end of every year in December, and just kind of, I do it to my staff, and here's what happened this year, here's what we expect next year. Try to write down some of those fingerprints that happen, good, bad, and ugly.
Love it. Okay.
Right? So there's some really beautiful things that happen, whether they're people, whether they're a process, right? But kind of write them down, because I wish I would have done that early on to be able to reflect, you know, after year 2, after year 3, after year 7, going back and saying, oh goodness, look at how I was a baby. I didn't know anything. So you're in that first year and you want to capture that. You want to go back and look at that data, and that is so you, right? You want to go, what did I do my first year? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? But that's what I think. I needed courage, and I wish I was a journaler. I wish I would have taken more notes so I could look back and see how far I've come, and forgiven myself for the things that really looked, you know, like I didn't see coming. Like, why didn't I see that coming? Why did I make that decision? It's all right. It seemed like the right decision in the moment, and you corrected it. So it's totally crazy. So what inspired the name Novus Data Journey?
So as I was thinking about the name, Novus is new in Latin. Mm-hmm. And to me, data is so beautiful, the information that comes from it, because it's a life cycle. From the moment it's created to the moment it's retired, the success of a company, or even people in general, is based on moving through that life cycle. Mm-hmm. And so to me, the new data journey was that I wanted to be someone that provided value across all elements, all aspects of that journey. It's also really anchored in, as I have moved through my life, life is a journey. It's a journey of high points and low points, of mistakes and successes. And it was really impactful for me to put that into the name of a company, because every day I woke up, I look and say, that's my new data journey. This is my new learning. And so that name is very integral into what I want to provide for myself, but also what I want to provide to my partners and companies that I deliver solutions for.
That is so cool. I love knowing that background. That's really neat. And, you know, I think that you're focusing on you know, small and mid-sized businesses, because I think traditionally enterprise, maybe large businesses, they can afford really expensive consultants to come in and analyze things and help them. But sometimes I feel like they still don't do anything with that data. They don't really make good data decisions, right? Yeah. Because I think sometimes things are siloed. This person is getting this information. They're making a decision for their initiatives, right? And I think it's just, there's a lot of gaps. So I love that you're focused on small to mid-size, because small companies tend to need those services but can't afford those services. So let's talk a little bit about that gap in the data and analytics as consultants, but also, you know, why do you think that gap exists?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's two components, Catherine, and that is, one, the ability to invest in scale. Most small companies, for sure, but mid-size, they're not going to be capable of building a highly governed data and analytics organization that has, you know, analysts, data governance people, risk people associated with it, data scientists. You know, all of those roles are highly expensive to put in place and require a great deal of expertise from a leadership perspective to drive. And so I think there's a real opportunity for small and mid-sized companies to accelerate their journey when they leverage consultants who are in that space. And that also really speaks to data and analytics as a general practice is changing much more quickly right now than other areas, potentially in the technology space. And so if you look at a small and a mid-sized company, their ability to keep up with those changes, like think from an AI perspective, large language models. Most small and mid-sized companies who are not in the practice of DNA, they're really thinking about, well, how do I report? And what does this metric do? Not necessarily, how can I analyze all of the data, apply an algorithm to it, or perhaps look at the themes and track it. And so I think from a consulting perspective, they can buy services that accelerate their ability to deliver. Mm-hmm. But there's also a second component, and I think this is a really big industry discussion, and that is, what are the skills needed to analyze that information and translate it into actionable steps that people can take? And so this idea of upskilling, reskilling, purchasing those skills, like my firm is also very interested in data literacy. How do we leave behind that expertise inside of an organization without them having to also build to scale? And so I think it's a purchasable component, if you think of it that way, that helps both your HR department understand what's needed to grow the skills, but it also allows you time in the small and the mid-sized companies to build those skills up without having to have it day one. To your point, the large data consulting practices, right, they can bring it all in. Larger companies can purchase all of those skill sets and build expertise. But the small guys need to have a differentiator. And I think that's really why there's a space for data and analytics consulting right now.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes small businesses, they're scrappy. They, don't have budgets set aside for great marketing or branding or data and analytics or analysts to really kind of peel things back. But so many of the platforms that we're purchasing nowadays, and these are available to smaller businesses, they have such great analytics that are built into them, but they're not looking at them, and certainly not prioritizing the actionable items that come out of it. And I think if I think it's wonderful you're focusing on that market, because 80% of the businesses are small businesses, right? That really make up our employment around the U.S. So it's really important to help them be strategic and grow. And there is a big gap for that, for sure. If you're loving this kind of insight, be sure to subscribe to Symplicity Conversations on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We've got more episodes ahead with visionaries who are shaping what's next in storytelling, leadership, and innovation. And I really don't want you to miss them. So, Roberta, what are some common misconceptions that you've seen about data in the business world?
I think there are a couple that I love. That data is black and white. It is what it is, right? But the reality is the way you analyze the data, the quality of the information that you're getting to, the integrated nature of the data, it's not on or off.
Right.
When data is integrated, you can do so much with it, but you have to do it ethically. You have to make sure it's protected and that it's private, right? And that you are, taking all of the elements to make sure that you are removing bias from the usage of those data. Right? So when a lot of people just think, I have data, I can do whatever I want with the data, that's not actually accurate. There's so many dimensions associated with it. And if you're not in the business of using data and analytics, that's not top of mind for you. So I think that's one misconception. I think the other misconception is that data is just that. It's a data element. But at the heart, people generate data through user interfaces. It's stored and it's moving across the life cycle. And so one misconception is that people are not at the center of data and analytics, but they are. The persona of who you're designing for matters as much as the data that's being generated, because then you can drive decisions that, again, impact people, like user-centered design, putting people at the center, is as important to data and analytics delivery as is the technology that captures it.
Yeah. It's funny as you're talking, I'm thinking about, different clients that I work with. And I think they get so focused on the technology that they're purchasing, they're really not understanding what's next after that they're going to have visibility to data that they haven't had in the past. I mean, we helped one client move to a cloud phone system. They didn't know why customers were calling. And there was so much value to being able to say, how can we automate some of these interactions, which, by the way, the customers want. I mean, people, I think the last number that I saw, it was 81% people want to self-serve. So you've got to give that to them, so that they can get the information they want, schedule the appointment when they want. But if they want to talk to a human, you've got to let them. And so I think that that's a little bit of a surprise when people start looking at the platforms that they have, and then as they can think about integrating those, and then to look at, okay, why are people calling? How can we support them better? How can we proactively support them? There's so many things that it's not even part of the thought process when they procure technology. And so I really do think that people need to procure technology differently these days with that in mind, with the data and the analytics that they're then gonna retrieve to do something with that. So
I love it. If I were to riff a bit on that, Catherine, it's a journey of, from the beginning to the end, what are the high moments that matter for the people that you're designing for and you're delivering for, and what are those low moments? And how do you improve the low moments with the insights and decisions, and then sort of accentuate the moments that matter? As I think about technology, it's one component of the overall delivery of an amazing solution. It's people, process, technology, and data or information. And I think mapping those four things together gives you something that's impactful and important. And I think companies often think, well, this tech will make something happen immediately. No, you've got to get people familiar with how to use it, when to use it, what's the output of it, and then how do you drive your decision for it? It's a very integrated relationship, and I think people forget that nature.
And there's a huge gap that I'm seeing in my industry when we deliver technology to a customer, the service provider that's delivering it. Okay, we've implemented your technology. There you go. We've drawn the line. And then they come back after 3 years. Okay, time to renew. There's nothing in between. And what we're seeing now is, and that's a gap we're starting to fill, is to help them automate, to help them. What's the next step after you deploy a cloud, phone system or a contact center? You have to evolve it. You have to look at the data and say, okay, what do we see? And what are the actionable items out of it so that we can help them dial in and tune the data that they're seeing and hand out the actionable items out of that. I think that that's the beauty of these cloud platforms that we're delivering to our clients. But I think that's the surprise that I'm seeing from clients, is that they were used to, in the past, I'm just going to buy this phone system and put it in and be done with it. Well, now you're putting in this platform that's going to start talking to you. It's going to start saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Would you like to do this? And there's some really cool AI, integrations that they can put into that. And then they start integrating with other platforms that they have. And now it's starting to present some really cool data. But there is a gap between the people at the company that need to do something with that data. IT folks tend to, they buy something and deploy it and be done, hand it over. There's the keys, go drive your car, right? But operations works in a certain way. And then marketing, they own the customer conversation, right? That's where I see all of these coming together, that everybody needs to have some input into the data and take the data that's applicable to them and do something with it. And there's some magic in there when you start doing that and evolving the system. And adding on and finding the gaps and filling the gaps with other products or something that helps you create this engine that at the end of the day, you're trying to help your clients better. You want to sell more green beans. You want to, help your clients, make decisions or show them what you can do and the capabilities. And I think that there's a huge market for that. And I love that you're starting in the small business, medium business area, because they haven't had the ability to use some of these big, huge data scientists and analysts. It's just not in the budget.
And I think if I were to double click on that, total agreement. The data strategy, where do we want to go and how do we want to go, is a very impactful conversation for small and mid-sized companies, because they could have 7 technologies that they use every day. Let's talk about a retail environment, right? You're capturing sales information. You've got HR related data in there. You've got inventory related to it. Then you've got loyalty data that's coming in. You've got all of these different components. And if you're a small merchandising company, right? Maybe you're doing T-shirts. You don't know how to pull all of those things together. And so if you don't create a data strategy and understand where you are today, where you want to get to, and then what are the little steps to do that, and how do you mature yourself from day 1 to year 3, that component, it doesn't have to be bureaucratic. It doesn't have to be super technical in the way it's written, but a data strategy will actually underpin your ability to sell more merchandise more quickly than your competitors. Mm-hmm. But small companies don't necessarily always think that way. They're bringing a product to market. And that's why I think there's specialists like myself in Novus Data Journeys and other partner companies to say, how do we build you a data strategy that helps you get to market more quickly? And also in this merchandising example, we're keeping your data private. It's governed. You're able to say from a security perspective that no one's able to see that data. So that there's really some core components, I think, that we can help small and mid-sized companies think through before they make mistakes early in the process that might prevent them from doing more of what they want to do, and that is sell their product or get to their customer.
I really want to highlight that nugget for listeners, because I think when you're starting a company, you're trying to sell to customers, you create a business plan, you maybe create a marketing plan, but I can guarantee you they're not creating a data strategy plan. So listeners, you want to think about a data strategy plan. And if you don't know how to create that, number one, you've got things like ChatGPT to get you started. You don't have to start with a blank sheet. You've got the ability to reach out to consultants that can say, this is my budget. What can you do for this budget? You know, and they can help, get you there. But you got to start. And I think that I haven't really heard of a lot of entrepreneurs that are talking about having a data strategy plan. So that's definitely something that needs to be there. So let's talk about when a client first engages with you, what kind of transformations can they expect, or can you walk us through kind of a typical journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we take seriously this idea of a boutique relationship that we build.
I love that. I love that.
So for us, it's what does success look like for you as a partner or customer with us, right? We don't necessarily think of it in our engagements that you're a company and we're going to have this, company relationship. Yes, we're going to do that. All entrepreneurs need to make sure that contracts are in the right space and that we're doing the right things. But it's really, what does success look like for you? What's the desired outcome and the goal? We do that from the very beginning. We put our partners and our clients at the center. We have workshops and conversations with them at the very beginning to articulate what that strategic outcome for whatever engagement we do looks like. Mm-hmm. And then actually we take a methodology we have of engagement at the beginning, doing current state assessments as we move through, building target states, implementation plans. Like we've got a repeatable methodology, But part of our engagement, that transformation is we're not talking to you about our methodology, because at the end of the day, you don't care whether our methodology has 8 steps to it or 10. You just want to feel like you are driving with us in that process. And so transformations you'll get from us is you'll know what the personas of the work you want to do. You'll know that there's governance practices to it. You'll know that there's a detailed implementation plan and that there's solutions along the way. And from a boutique perspective, I often think I want you to hit the easy button with us. Like, what you won't get with us is, why did you guys make this data decision? Or that's the wrong way to do it, because that's not how you drive a transformational conversation. We're going to guide you for things that you don't know along the outcome. And the last thing I'll leave is, transformational is, what time frame do you need it? And then we'll decide on what level of rigor needs to be in place according to your time frame and potentially a multi-year journey. Even if you're not working with us in the future of a multi-year journey, like we're just helping you start, we're going to leave you with a multi-year step journey for the next step and the next step. That's a big component of what makes Novus Data Journeys unique, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a minute about consultant engagements. And I think the 2 words I loved you using the word outcome. I think business owners, when they hire a consultant, they want to feel like they've been listened to, they've been heard, right? And then it's all about outcomes. No matter how you get there, that's your secret sauce, is what you bring to the table. You can do this. They can't. That's why they want to engage a consultant. But I think that what we tend to forget at the beginning is you're hiring somebody to come in and consult. They need to deliver something to you that makes you better than when you started. So being listened to and focusing on outcomes is key. And I think setting the exact, here's the time frame of this consultant, this is what we're going to do, here's the check-ins. I love that you do that so that it's clear. You got to have clarity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about the maturity journey, because I think that's the other clarity piece, is that most small and medium-sized companies are not really mature in their journeys. I mean, it depends on when we engage them. Yeah. But I think of a client that I'm working with now, and we've been putting in place some processes and procedures. We actually started a bit slower intentionally because there was an educational component needed for some of the strategic work that we were doing. So in recognizing that they're immature, but very much so want to mature, it's really important to engage and go at the pace that they need, because then you can change it and you can go more quickly the more that you educate the folks that you're in the mix. And so to your point about desired outcomes, in this example, they didn't articulate to me, I really want people to understand this process that we're getting in. That's the desired outcome. Because nobody asks for people to understand the process they just did, right? Like, that's not the outcome we're looking for. But I can tell them as we've moved through this particular engagement, okay, we're going to do this type of workshop. And then your folks are going to learn this skill as they go along. Right? Once they get these skills, it's going to accelerate the product that we're delivering here on the back end. And so as we've moved through this engagement, the client I'm working with is like, oh, I really like this, or gosh, this is feeling like we're doing more work than talking about things. And I think that's the other, you can see I'm probably pretty passionate about that, is consultants can often do a whole lot of talking and not necessarily do a whole lot of delivering, right? Like, and small and medium-sized companies, they need you to actually deliver value quickly. And, I think that that's something that from an outcome perspective, if you're really in tune with your client, you understand at what point are you done teaching, and then you're moving to doing with them.
Oh, that's cool. That's really neat. Yeah, it is. It's interesting as you start working with them, and when you see, it's almost like you light up going, this is why I hired them. You can see that. Speaking of aha moments, have you had that moment yet of this is why I started this company. I knew I was onto something. Have you had that moment? I find mine came a little bit later, just because I was such in a scramble that first year just to survive and breathe. So I'm curious if you've had your aha moment of, this is why I started the company.
Yeah, I've had probably 2 or 3 along the way. So my first aha is, wow, it takes a village, right? You and I have had a ton of conversations. I think of one early when I was building my strategic plan, which I wasn't really sure how to do that. Did I do it in PowerPoint? Did I do it in Word, or whatever the case would be? And you and I were talking about it, and you were like, think big, lean in, take risk. And that aha moment for me was like, I was completely uncomfortable being in that space. And the discomfort I felt in that moment was completely appropriate to this new journey that I was on. So that's probably my first aha, is lean in, think big. The other for me was, as I've bid work in different things, and I've had different responses, I've gone along, is that it's really okay to fail. Right. And that's very different than corporate America, because in corporate America, your objectives are set. If you don't make your objectives, right, then you're having a conversation about X, Y, or Z. And the environment, even in very good companies, the environment is not set up to have repeated failures end up in success, right? I experienced a little bit of that benefit at things like Amazon, which is very good at that fail forward. But that for me was that, wow, I can fail on this. I did a proposal that nobody responded to, even though they asked for it. And I felt in that moment that I had completely failed. Did I not do it right? Did I not meet their needs? I was moving through, and I was like, you know what? I failed at that. But it's okay, because I now understand what rejection as an entrepreneur feels like. And so I think for me, my aha moments they're less about my solutions right now, and they're more about, to your point, forgiveness. What's the interference I have in that equation? And that I can fail. And I love it. Actually, it just energizes me so much that I can fail and it's okay.
That's why I early on started saying fail forward. Because it felt like I was doing something, like, even though I failure in itself feels like you take a step back. I failed. I fell backwards, right? But when you fail forward, you learn something, you take something from it, and I don't want to do that again, right? So I think failing is just fine. In fact, it might lead you to the next open door of, wow, if I hadn't failed, maybe I wouldn't be here. So embrace it. It's okay. I always say, you have strengths and weaknesses. Embrace your weaknesses, because they're there. Everybody knows them. You can't hide them. You just have to hire and hire to those, hire people smarter than you, right? Yeah. It's interesting, but I think the point of self-reflection, of constantly stopping and going, what went well? What didn't go well? What would I do over if I could start over? What would I do over? And so I'm curious if you have any. I know it's early in your business, but do you have any advice that you'd offer to a new entrepreneur that's thinking about starting a business, or just starting out and they just don't know where to go? Any advice?
Yeah. So I think leveraging your village, you can start a business actually fairly quickly and easily, and it's not a daunting process to do it, and you're going to get it wrong. And so my advice is, a lot of people want to provide products. They want flexibility, which candidly, being an entrepreneur gives you a whole lot of flexibility. So my advice is just do it.
Yay.
Right? Day one, you may not be perfect at it, but just do it. And then put your clothes on the next day and do it again and do it again. I think that's one. The other part for me is you're going to worry all the time. Can I make payroll? Can I pay myself? Are we going to survive? What does my logo look like? And so my other piece of advice is realize that every decision is really a two-way door. That's sort of an Amazon type thought process. And that is, most people think I make a decision and I'm done and I can't undo it. as an entrepreneur, everything that you do is almost a two-way decision. Wow. So you can go through it, you can come back, you can do it again. To me, that's once you've made the commitment to be in your own business, then you drive the rules. And I think that should excite people every day. So
yeah, I love that because movement, right? Forwards, backwards, sidewards, it's all movement and you're going. And that's that concept of forgiving yourself to go, that was a good move, that was a bad move, right? It's a chess game. It's really, but at the end of the day, I think there's a misconception of when people own their own business, they're just like, oh, you just get, you can be done at noon and you can work a couple of hours and you can write your own schedule. And it's like, oh my gosh, no, you work all the time. Because even when you're not sitting in front of your computer working, you're thinking, you're constantly like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Even I find myself wake up in the middle of the night and go, of course, I should have thought of that, right? It does not turn off. I think that's what makes it an entrepreneur. You can't turn it off. You're just constantly thinking.
It's yours. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it is your success is determined by your resiliency and determination. And that's why you don't turn it off, Catherine. I love that. It's like, I have like a notebook by the bed that I always put, like I wake up in the middle of the night, I put notes in it because I'm going to think about it the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to remember those little nuggets.
Yeah.
So are there any services or innovations that you're excited to roll out?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. We just recently got certified with the EDM Council to do data maturity assessments.
Yay.
Thank you. Yes, it's a great organization. Again, that's EDM Council, and they provide all of the elements to do a maturity assessment, no matter what size the company is, and to train your folks to do that. And so we are an authorized partner for them. We can come in and do that assessment. We can tell you on a scale of where you are, where you need to be. Doesn't matter the size of the company. Doesn't matter the amount of data or information that you have. And the reason that's important is so many companies are trying to move quickly to AI. So this service will tell you how mature your data is today. And then we can help tell you how you can build that capability for AI along the journey. So I'm super thrilled about that. Another service, this is a passion point for me, and that is, and it's a tagline, but it's data literacy, right? We offer a service where we build curriculum from a variety of different platforms where you can take these classes and then you can say, this is the minimum data literacy I want for all the people, say, in my HR department or, in my sales department or whatever the case may be. And so we've been working on this offering to say, what curriculum can we give you right out the door? And then we also have a customized way that we can insert, depending on what your needs are. That's part of us doing the current needs assessments with you, to what elements you need and putting real world examples in that. And so, we offer other services with data strategy and things, which I love. Like I'm good at that. I love that. But I like this maturity assessment and the data literacy offerings. I'm hoping they'll be pretty successful.
I'm sure they will. Do you envision growing the company in building a team or staying solo?
Definitely going to build the team. Though if you'd asked me that 3 months ago, Catherine, I would be like, no, it's just me. There's too much risk for more people. I'm actually bringing on my first contractor as I work through the next couple of weeks, because here's why I think I will do the team-based environment. There are things that I am good at, but there are things that I am not good at. And it takes the team in the village to deliver that value. And knowing that about myself now, ultimately for me, like if I were to dream big, I'd love to have products and services like what I've articulated and have SMEs and best practices, like best in class across multiple of those areas. So definitely a team.
Yeah. I can't believe we have to start wrapping it up already. But what do you think is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
Yeah. When I worked at HEB, Gavin Gallagher was one of the senior leaders there, and he asked me a fundamental question. on my journey. We were career planning at the time. And he said, do you want to be an IT savvy business person or a business savvy IT person? Nobody had ever asked me the question in that way. And actually my answer was both. And that piece of advice has launched every action, career change, starting of this company.
Wow.
Because people think they're on one or the other side. And for me, if you're going to drive outcomes in today's very complex, integrated environment, you can't just be good at tech or data. And you can't be just good at business or you're not going to be successful. So,
right.
Gavin probably gave me a piece of advice that he thought was a momentary career planning piece, and it has fundamentally changed the trajectory of my career and really my life.
I love that. And I think that one really important thing, especially to tell younger listeners that are new in their career, watch for those moments, write them down, because as you look back, hindsight is 20/20, right? And so you reflect on these and go, so we could have forgotten the most important moments, because as you go, I feel like sometimes I empty the recycle bin. Like I don't have any room for some of it. So we just kind of get rid of it. But how many amazing things along the way that I don't even remember. So write them down, write some key things down. I always say, I wish I was a journaler, because I would love to have some notes from different points in my career. Certainly over the 19 years, we've got things that I could go back and look at PowerPoints and things like that. But man, if I could have taken some key things out of some of the most incredible people that I've met and just kind of jot down some of those thoughts, wow, would that be amazing?
Yeah, I think to extend that too is, even though you might be young, how are you making that difference to others? How are you giving back? Because I'm pretty sure that Gavin didn't realize the difference he made in my life. I now think of what I can give back, because I think it's really important to know that no matter where you are on your journey, you have value and somebody else will learn from you. And so that's the other thing. Yes, journal. Yes, remember it. But what are you giving back? What matters to the people around you that they can learn from your journey? I just think it's super important.
I love that. Everyone adds value from their first day of work, whether they're 1 year in. So don't feel like because you're not the most experienced in the room that you don't have a voice, that you can't ask a question. So many young people in meetings, I can't speak up and ask a question because it'll sound dumb. The only dumb question is the one that isn't asked.
Exactly.
Right? So understand that you bring value, you bring perspective, even if you're the newbie. So be okay with that. Talk to people before and after meetings. Show up to a meeting a little bit before. So when you're sitting around the table before the meeting starts, you can chit chat with people, because you're going to learn things. I always say the meetings after the meeting, right?
Exactly.
Those are super important. So make sure you're doing those things for sure. So, gosh, I can't believe we're at this point. But where can listeners connect with you, Roberta, and learn more about Novus Data Journeys?
Love it. And I'm super proud of this. So we have a website actually that is live and will be continuing to grow. It's novusdata.com, and that's NOVUS data.com.
I love it.
We have a LinkedIn presence as well. And, as we're new, we're putting out like, what's our social media plan? What is our marketing plan? Those types of things. And so I would encourage you to come back frequently to both of those channels, right? Both our website and our LinkedIn, because we're going to continue to give you insights along the way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Roberta. It's been just lovely talking to you. I'm so excited to watch you in your first year. And, I'm reminiscing back to my early days, and I'm excited to kind of encourage you and watch you and grow, because I can tell you when you're reaching your 20th year, where you're going to be. It's going to be great. I'm going to really enjoy watching it.
Thank you, Catherine. This has been a great journey, and you are a great mentor and advocate for entrepreneurs. And so I've loved the conversation, and I'm glad to get a chance to talk with you and connect with your listeners about what I think is important. So thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. So thanks for tuning in to Symplicity Conversations. Go to thesimplepodcast.com for more information and follow us on LinkedIn for the latest updates. If today's conversation sparked something for you, be sure to leave a review and share the episode with someone in your network. We'll see you next time.